Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be doing a Titanfall fan art piece, so let's get into the video. So the first thing you probably noticed is I got a microphone now, which is awesome, so I get to talk to you guys all the time, which could be a gift or a curse for you. So today, like I said, we're going to be doing a Titanfall fan art piece. So with the release of Apex Legends, I don't know, a couple months ago, I was playing it. Battle Royales aren't necessarily my thing, but what it really reminded me of was Titanfall 2, and I absolutely loved that game. The mechanical movement, the grunt hunting, and the abilities were all amazing. And probably my favorite thing in the entire game was running around the map with the Kraber and popping off one-shots. This was also a bit big for me because it was the first game that I ever played on a PC besides Dark Souls, but I guess you can kind of count that a little bit differently than a Titanfall and a FPS shooter. So today I thought I'd immortalize that with the drawing that I wanted to do. So as you can see here, I started with a normal piece, started with a bit of pencil line art, and then using a light table, transferred it over to a sheet of just normal 9.5 by 11 sheet of paper again. I went over the piece with darker lines to bring everything out and make sure that the detail I wanted was there. And then again, after that was done, I transferred it again using the same light table to the final medium, which is a piece of marker coloring paper. But before we go and do the final piece, I first wanted to do a bit of testing. So what I did was I took the helmet and I drew it a few times, sketching it out, and each time I wanted to test out a different color variation because I really wasn't sure exactly what color I wanted to do from the reference images that I was using. So the first one you can see, I went for more of a desert look, which I liked, but the second one where it was gray and had purple highlights, I liked a lot better. And I wanted to try it with a bit of a lighter color mixed in before I went over it with the grays and the purples. So first I just sketched it out real fast, went over it with a bit of fine liner. What you can see me doing now is taking a bit of light pink and putting it down in the area, and then I would do it very lightly and in a very small piece of the corner because I don't want it spreading over a very large portion of the image. Then I took a light gray and I'm coloring in most of the helmet, and then I start blending it into the pink. And then as we continue going, I'm going to take those colors and get progressively darker. The dark colors blending in will give it a seamless transition of how the helmet's going to look. We're going to take the purple and blend that into the background so that we have a nice dark shadow that gives contrast to the rest of the helmet, especially where we have the lighter regions up on the top of the helmet and in the front where our light source is coming from. And then we're going to continue doing that all around the helmet, from the top onto the sides and all around. Then I took a very light blue, one of the light blues that we actually put in the helmet itself, and we're just going to start putting it down very lightly at first where the crown of the helmet comes down, and then we're going to start making it darker as it goes farther back where you're going to have more shadows in the helmet itself. And then for the dark camcorder on top of his head, we're just going to take a bit of dark gray, blend it in, cover the entire area. Then we'll take a slightly darker gray and blend it in where shadows would occur on the back side of the helmet. And then we're going to take a color pencil and go over the top. And now we're going to do the same thing with the rest of the helmet. I took a dark gray color pencil and start coloring in lightly where there's going to be nicks or dents in the helmet. And then I went and outlined it in black ink as well. And then we're just going to do the same thing for the smaller camcorder that's coming off from the side of his head in the same exact process. So overall, I actually really like the way this helmet came out. The way that the light reflects off the crown of the helmet and just gives a very subtle signature to where the light source is coming, and then with the dark purple behind. I really like that setup. So now that we have that and we know the color scheme that we're going to use, we're going to go over to our final piece. This is the trace that we had from our light board of our drawing. With the helmet, we're going to do the same exact process. Start with that light pink that we went up at the top of the crown of the helmet, and then we're going to start blending in a very light gray before we take the light blue, blend it in, and then come back over with a darker gray and keep blending those together until we have a seamless transition of all those colors. Now that that's blended properly, we're going to take our purple and start blending it into the back to give dark shadows. At the same time, we're going to keep taking our dark gray marker and blending those two together until we have a seamless transition again. And then we're going to keep doing that throughout the helmet until we're done. And next we're going to move on to the flak jacket. Even though it's made out of a fabric material, I still wanted it to have the same color gradient as the helmet, so that when I'm doing the arms and the rest of the fabric of the clothing that's underneath, we can bring in a darker green and you'll get a high contrast between the two clothing. So as you can see, I'm doing the same process I did on the helmet. We're taking our light gray and working it in slowly, taking our darker and working it in until we have a seamless transition between the two. And whenever I find that I have a dark spot, I'll either take a darker gray and blend those two together, or I'll take the purple and blend that in as well, so that we have a seamless shadow. I'm also using the purple so that we have a livelier shadow instead of having one kind of monotonous shadow with all of the gray colors. That's another reason that I'm also working in the blue every so often, where we have a bit of light transition. Whenever I run into more metal, we go again to the light gray, transitioning over and then working it in as well. All of the pouches that are coming off the front, we're going to do the same exact way and keep working our way down. Anything that's left blank, I'm just going to come back and do later in that darker green or in a color that I haven't quite decided yet. I keep that same transition as the helmet and the flak jacket, making sure that I keep those same exact color gradients the same throughout. But on the back of the leg, we're going to have a much darker shadow and make sure to keep that a darker purple. Next, I do the rest of the accessories on the pilot until we're going to move on and do the clothing. Now for the clothing, I wanted to do something different that would give it a lot more pop from the armor. So I decided to go with a standard green army fatigue underneath, like a lot of the other pilots wear. First I start with the green, working it in, and then I'm going to keep going over it over and over again to make the shadows come out more and more in the drawing, making sure to follow the lighting pattern that I have in the drawing. So as you can see under the arm, I'm using a darker and darker tone, going over it multiple times before I go over it again to give it a darker shadow underneath. And with the arm done, I'm going to continue that type of coloring all throughout the rest of the pilot's clothing where it's exposed. On the legs, especially where the armor is covering up, I make sure that there's a very heavy dark shadow, but I also make sure to leave in several lines of light green color so that you have a contrast where you have highlights on the leg and the pants that you would normally have when you see any type of clothing. Moving on to the gun, the biggest thing I want to watch out for is making sure that all the coloring I do is within the geometric lines of the gun. If you start going outside the lines, it's going to look blurry and unfocused, which is going to make the gun look incredibly weird. With all the dark grays and the beiges I'm putting down, I'm staying mostly within the lines. However, if a little bit goes outside, I know it's going to be covered up with the fine liner, so I don't have to be completely perfect. So the last thing I wanted to do, knowing that the pilot was going to be wall running and holding on to something, I took grays and colored it in until I had what looked like a building facade. Colored in where the building was broken at the top from some type of fighting that was happening, and used the same type of process to color in the window with a blue, going light to dark as I worked myself out, filling in the fine detail with a different color or colored pencil around where the bullet had gone through the window. So, being my first fan art, overall I liked the drawing quite a lot. The overall color gradients I think worked really well, except one thing I wish I did a little better was coming up with some of the fine detail that was within the pilot. When you look at the character models for the pilots, they have a lot of fine detail, which is not something I was able to work in completely. I wish I was able to put a little more detail into it, but hopefully that's something I can keep working on in the future. If you liked the video, hit that like button below, or if there's something you want to see me draw in the future, just leave it in the comment. And if you want to see more videos like these, subscribe. Now go make something. And that's it.